Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa barik wa sallam. MashaAllah, this is the beginning of the i'tikaf, and we realize that most of the brothers were working yesterday all day, and then the entire night have been up. So we will try to make today the first session a little bit shorter, and until we get used to the new sleeping pattern, we are still in getting adjusted to the new schedule. Then you will be more fresh, inshallah, in the coming mornings. So we'll be considerate of that. So inshallah, what we have in the morning is few sessions, few things that we do in the morning. One is that the morning du'as, the morning adhkar. We don't want to miss that today, inshallah, as well. And these are the du'as that are made by, given to us by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in our madrasa here in Darul Islam Academy, this is part of the routine in the daily morning assembly. The students, they recite these du'as. And inshallah, will be projected on the screen, right? Whether you have it projected on the screen, inshallah, now. So we can follow along. And you can also, this laminated bookmark to make it easy for us to memorize. It's only $2. It's available in the masjid side of the lobby. So those who are in the Sunnah Itikaf can also buy it. It's only $2. These are all adhkar and du'as taught to us by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Each one of them is so powerful. And I'm short on time. Otherwise, if I would start giving you the virtues of each one, maybe I'll give you a virtue of one or two, just to create the interest. The first one is Bismillahi alladhi la yadurru ma'a ismihi shay'un fil ardi wa la fis sama'i wa huwa as-sami'ul 'alim. In the name of that Allah, that when His name is taken, nothing in the heavens or in the earth can harm, and He is all hearing, all knowing. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, if this dua is recited with ikhlas, the first dua, and the lights in the front maybe can be turned off, the front ones. If this dua is recited 3 times in the morning, then nothing can harm that person that entire day unless death is destined for him. And if recited at night, nothing can harm in the entire night unless death is decreed for that person. So we begin in the name of that Allah, La yadurru ma'asmihi, that when His name is taken, nothing can harm, La yadurru, nothing can harm in the heavens, nothing from the heavens, shay'un fil ardi, nothing in the earth nor in the heavens. Wa huwa as-sami'ul 'alim. He's all hearing. He can hear the enemy trying to attack you, any insect, any harmful thing, any human being who's an enemy. Al-Alim, who is fully aware. When this enemy spy from the Roman Empire was discovered in the army of Khalid bin Walid radiyallahu anhu, and he was brought in his presence, and he was searched, and they found a bottle of poison. And when he was asked, what are your plan to do with this? And he ended up saying that, inshallah, you don't have to necessarily take a picture of the screen. You can buy this for $2 only $2. So it's available, inshallah. So he said that this is a bottle of poison that I was supposed to put in the drinking water supply, and it is so potent, it's so powerful that even though it's diluted by how many magnitude by the entire army's water supply, it will cause death to multitudes of people, if not all of the army. So Khalid bin Walid radiyallahu anhu, he said that, you think you can harm us with these things? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has given us such powerful tools to protect us. And he recited, Bismillahi alladhi la yadurru ma'asmihi shay'un fil ardi wa la fis sama'i wa as-sami'ul 'alim. The same dua, first one. And he drank the entire concentrate, and nothing happened to him. So I'm not necessarily suggesting you do that. First, you have to have the belief and the iman of Saifullah Khalid bin Walid. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala treats us according to our expectations from Him. If you have that level of conviction and that level of yaqeen, undoubtedly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can protect us. And we can go on. That's just the first dua. And then there's second dua, third dua. So we will do these duas, inshallah. One of the students I'll call upon, Hafiz Muhammad Ali, inshallah, can come and recite the dua like we do in our assembly in the morning. And we can repeat together afterwards. After that, inshallah, we have planned our question and answer session. So, if you have sent in a question, definitely you cannot go to sleep because your question might be answered and you'll be sleeping. You don't want that to happen. Yes, they're here. So, I already got so many questions. I don't know, 20, 30 questions. So, where is the box for these questions? The box for the questions is in the lobby there on the side. There's a table. You can write your questions, put it in the box. So inshallah, we'll try to answer a few of them. We won't answer all of them today, and we will continue answering them afterwards. Then we'll have the Surah Yasin Khatam in dua, and then we can sleep inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم نبيا. رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم نبيا. رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم نبيا. اللهم بك أصبحنا وبك أمسينا وبك نحيا وبك نموت وإليك النشور. اللهم أنت ربي لا إله إلا أنت خلقتني وأنا عبدك وأنا على عهدك ووعدك ما استطعت. أعوذ بك من شر ما صنعت. أبوء لك بنعمتك علي وأبوء لك بذنبي فاغفر لي فإنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت. أصبحنا على فطرة الإسلام وعلى كلمة الإخلاص وعلى دين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى ملة أبينا إبراهيم حنيفا مسلما وما كان من المشركين. اللهم ما أصبح بي من نعمة أو بأحد من خلقك فمنك وحدك لا شريك لك، فلك الحمد ولك الشكر. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من الهم والحزن، وأعوذ بك من العجز والكسل، وأعوذ بك من الجبن والبخل، وأعوذ بك من غلبة الدين وقهر الرجال. اللهم أنت ربي لا إله إلا أنت عليك توكلت وأنت رب العرش الكريم. ما شاء الله كان وما لم يشأ لم يكن. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. أعلم أن الله على كل شيء قدير، وأن الله قد أحاط بكل شيء علما. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من شر نفسي ومن شر كل دابة أنت آخذ بناصيتها إن ربي على صراط مستقيم اللهم عافني في بدني اللهم عافني في سمعي اللهم عافني في بصري لا إله إلا أنت اللهم عافني في بدني اللهم عافني في سمعي اللهم عافني في بصري لا إله إلا أنت اللهم عافني في بدني اللهم عافني في سمعي اللهم عافني في بصري لا إله إلا أنت اللهم إني أعوذ بك من الكفر والفقر اللهم إني أعوذ بك من عذاب القبر لا إله إلا أنت اللهم إني أعوذ بك من الكفر والفقر اللهم إني أعوذ بك من عذاب القبر لا إله إلا أنت اللهم إني أعوذ بك من الكفر والفقر اللهم إني أعوذ بك من عذاب القبر لا إله إلا أنت اللهم رحمتك أرجو فلا تكلني إلى نفسي طرفة عين وأصلح لي شأني كله لا إله إلا أنت سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق
So, alhamdulillah, this is an opportunity for us to ask our questions in the morning sessions. And the reason we kept it in the morning is because with the questions and the answers, hopefully this is a more lively session, more interactive session. It's easier to stay awake. And just a few etiquettes, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has told us, إِنَّمَا شِفَاءُ الْعَيِّ السُّؤَالِ. In one expedition, a group of Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they went out in a campaign. One Sahabi, he became wounded. And he was so severely wounded, he had so many wounds over his entire body. Then he had the need to take a ghusl. And instead of, he could have done tayammum, but he asked somebody who did not have knowledge, and they said, no, you have to take a ghusl. He ended up taking a ghusl, and he was so wounded that he ended up dying. He ended up actually dying from that and losing his life. And when this report was brought to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Innama shifa'ul ayyi aswal." That verily the cure for ignorance is to ask. قَتَلُوهُ قَاتَلَهُمُ اللَّهُ. That you have killed him. Why did you kill him? Why didn't he ask the right person? Likewise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask those who have knowledge if you do not have. So this is an order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran. Ask those who know if you do not know. Initially, the Sahaba radhiyallahu anhum were asking questions frequently, and then it became more relaxed and started asking more questions and more questions. And a point came that some of the munafiqeen and hypocrites were asking very absurd questions and crossing the limits. And it got worse and worse until finally, na'udhu billah, somebody asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that, they kept on asking, and he became very perturbed. And one occasion, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam became upset, and he said, "Okay, go on asking. Every question you ask, I'm going to be answering them. I won't move from this place." And then one person, he said, "Ya Rasulullah, is my father, who is known to be my father, really my biological father?" So this is the type of question somebody asked. Even though whatever happened in the Jahiliyyah might have happened in the Jahiliyyah. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this ayah in the Quran. "Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la tasalu an ashya'a in tubda lakum tasu'kum." All those who believe, don't ask such questions that if the answer is given to you, it's going to harm you, it's going to hurt you. Why do you want to dig up things that happened in the past? وَإِن تَسْأَلُوا عَنْهَا حِينَ يُنَزَّلُ الْقُرْآنُ تُبْدَ لَكُمْ. But if you're going to ask the questions while the Quran is being revealed, while Rasulullah is alive, he will be informed, and you will hear the correct answer, whether you like it or not. Afallahu anha, but Allah has forgiven you. So after that, they became very scared. So there was a moratorium, there was a stop. No one asked any questions. Even when they had genuine need, now they went to the other extreme. There was absolute silence. No one was asking any question at all. And there were certain scenarios that happened where they really needed guidance, but they were too scared to ask because of this strong ayah. Then to break the ice, again Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took care of that the Sahaba were sitting with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. بينما نحن عند رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Abu Hurairah narrates, we were sitting in the company of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. اصطلع علينا رجل. When all of a sudden a man appeared. شديد بياض الثياب, he had the whitest of white clothes. شديد سواد الشعر, he had the blackest of black hair. لا يرى عليه أثر السفر, there was no sign of any journey upon him. ولا يعرفه منا أحد, yet none of us recognized him. He wasn't a person from Medina because no one recognized him. He didn't seem like he was a traveler from outside because he had no sign of traveling upon him. His hair was not disheveled, he had no dust upon him. He looked like he just came out of the shower. With black glistening hair. As if he appeared out of thin air. Where was he from? And then he jumped over the backs of everyone. And he made a big scene on purpose. And he came right in front. حتى جلس إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فأسند ركبتيه إلى ركبتيه. Then he put his two knees up to the knees of Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم. And وجعل يديه على فخذيه. Then he put his two hands on his thighs. وقال, and he started asking questions. أخبرني عن الإسلام. Tell me what is Islam. And then أخبرني عن الإيمان. What is Iman? أخبرني عن الإحسان. What is Ihsan? متى الساعة? When is the day of Qiyamah? أخبرني عن إماراتها. Tell me about the signs of the day of Qiyamah. He asked all these questions. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam answered his questions. And then after he left, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, أتدرون من السائل? Do you know who the questioner was? And the Sahaba were amazed. They said, فَعَجِبْنَا لَهُ يَسْأَلُهُ وَيُصَدِّقُهُ. We were very surprised. Who is this questioner? He asked questions, and then when the Prophet answers the question, then he says, صَدَقْتَ, yes, that is the right answer. As if he already knew it. The fact that he's asking the question, the su'al is a dalil al-jahad, that he doesn't know, jahala. And his tasdeeq, and he's saying, yes, it's the right answer, is a dalil of ilm, that he already knew the answer. So he was a very confusing personality. So we said, who is he if you don't know? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Atakum Jibra'il yu'allimukum dinakum." Jibra'il alayhi salam came in the form of a human being to teach you your deen. This is a very well-known hadith. Most of you have heard it, known as the hadith of Jibra'il. One of the fundamentals of our deen, this hadith. So when did this happen? This happened when the Sahaba were not asking any questions. So this opened the door once again. Then they became relaxed because they saw the Prophet ﷺ was answering the questions. And there are more etiquettes we can continue on about asking questions, how you should ask questions. You should ask it such a question which is particular to you, which you really need guidance on. It shouldn't be a theoretical question. It shouldn't be a question to put somebody down. It shouldn't be a question in which you are actually indicating somebody in your question. You're attacking some personality. That is it okay to be a board member of a masjid while having an interest loan on your house? Get it? You see what I'm saying? That type of question. If somebody is investing in Subway and selling pork, can they be on the masjid board? So, are you investing in Subway and selling pork? Then ask. If you are not, then don't worry about the board member if he is what he's doing, right? That's what the point is, that we should ask questions pertaining to ourselves with the intention of amal. Sometimes people ask questions to express their own knowledge, to show off their own knowledge. How do you rank Qastalani and Kirmani and Fathul Bari of Ibn Hajar Asqalani and Umdat al-Qari of Badruddin Aini, these 4 shuruh of Bukhari? Which commentaries do you recommend? So somebody will say, wow, he read Qastalani, he read Kirmani, he read Aini, he read Ibn Hajar Asqalani, he read these 4 commentaries. Now he's wondering what is a better commentary of Sahih Bukhari. So the purpose of the question is to show one's knowledge. Sometimes the purpose of the question is to put the one who is answering the question in a particular problem, and to show yourself to be superior than the one who is answering the questions. All of these are wrong intentions. The correct intention is with the intention of amal. So these are some of the etiquettes of asking questions. Ask someone who you believe would know the answer, someone who has sanad, who has studied. And of course there are etiquettes for answering questions too. Amongst them is that very basic one for me, reminder is that if you don't know the answer, then you shouldn't be shy to say you don't know. As Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma said, قَوْلُكَ اللَّهُ أَعْلَمْ لِمَا لَا تَعْلَمْ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ قَوْلُكَ اللَّهُ أَعْلَمُ لِمَا لَا تَعْلَمُ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ. You're responding by saying Allah knows best to the question, the answer which you do not know is actual knowledge. Whereas making excuses and false answers is ignorance. And to say I don't know, قَوْلُكَ لَا أَعْلَمْ اللَّهُ أَعْلَمُ. Right, that's the whole answer. لَا أَعْلَمُ اللَّهُ أَعْلَمُ. I don't know, Allah knows best. For what you don't know is actual ilm. That's the real ilm, to say I don't know, Allah knows best. Whereas making up a false answer is jahala, is ignorance. So and in the interest of getting more questions rather than few, we will try to make brief answers. Each one of them could be a whole topic, and we can go off on a tangent and talk for a long time in each one, but we try to do it shorter. And not necessarily I will be going into all the dalail and evidences for each one and do a comparative fiqh study, right? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَبِهِ أَسْتَعِينَ. I seek help from Allah. Number 1, the zakat money. Is it permissible to build a house on the roof of the masjid for the imam from zakat money? The imam is paid, and this is not compensation for his services. Rather, it is an extra help for him. So we should not only building an extra house, but any of this construction work, you should not use zakat money for that. Rather, zakat money should be given directly to the poor. إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين, and it should be discharged by giving it to the worthy recipient, who would be a needy person, rather than using it in construction. And this construction of the masajid and madaris and this extra room for the imam, or whatever the case may be, is a very worthy cause, but we should use nafal sadaqah for that, voluntary charity, beyond the zakat. Could we make du'as in English in the sajda during salah, with sunnah salah, witr salah, and nafal salah? So, in salah we can make du'as. In nafal prayers we can make extra du'as, but it has to be du'as from the Quran or the sunnah. Alright? Those that are done in the Arabic language. And question, it is said that praying Isha and Fajr Salah in Jama'ah is as if you have been in ibadah the whole night. If you just do this on the night of Laylatul Qadr, will it count as 1,000 months of worship, even if you only prayed Isha and Fajr in Jama'ah? So there's 2 types of reward. One is kasbi and one is fadli. One is that which is earned, one is that which is honorary given by Allah. Like if you perform the Ishraq and Salah, 2 rakat nafal, you will receive the reward. If you perform Fajr, remain in dhikr and ibadah like we are now, then perform the 2 rakat nafal Ishraq, you will receive the reward of nafal Hajj and Umrah. Can accepted Hajj and Umrah. Can that equal a real Hajj and Umrah? Or where the person they're both the same. One person spent $10,000 and spent 2 weeks and did Hajj, and one is you prayed 2 rakat Salah of Ishraq. Can they be the same? What do you think? Allah is just, of course, it's not the same. What is the one who actually does Hajj will receive so much reward. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving a bonus reward for the one who performs the Ishraq. So he will receive the reward for Hajj and Umrah, accepted Hajj and Umrah. The basic Hajj and Umrah thawab he will receive as a bonus from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the one who actually goes ahead and does it, he will receive minimum 10 times the reward. Man ja'a bil hasana, whoever does a good deed, falahu ashru amthaliha. He receives 10 times that. So one is you go to Harvard and you study and you gain a degree, a bachelor's degree from Harvard, 4 years undergrad, then you do 2 years and you get a master's, another 5-6 years and you get your PhD from Harvard. One is you're a visiting head of state who very uneducated maybe, and then you just get an honorary PhD. So one is a real PhD earned and one is an honorary PhD. So there's a difference between the two, right? So likewise, so this is not to discourage us from performing Fajr and Isha with Jama'ah. Yes, you will receive the reward of making ibadah the whole night. But we should be encouraged, we will get that bonus reward from Allah, but at the same time, this should not discourage us from standing up and saying, we don't need to do any more beyond that. You already got the whole night. Like you recite 3 times Qul Huwallahu Ahad, you get the reward of reciting the whole Quran. This is a fadl from Allah. But if you recite the whole Quran, you will receive even more than reciting the entire Quran once. You will receive the reward of reciting the Quran 10 times minimum. And there are many examples of that. No. And also one of the etiquettes for the one who's answering the questions is that never to laugh at a question, never to mock a question, and likewise from the audience. Because we have youth here, we have people from different backgrounds asking questions. So this is highly disrespectful if you ever laugh at a question, smile even at a question. And may Allah protect all of us. What is the punishment for committing minor zina in Ramadan? So I'm not sure what exactly the questioner is referring to as minor zina, but what is the punishment for committing it in Ramadan? See, another etiquette for asking questions, we have to be more specific. When did the zina occur? During the day when you're fasting or in the night? You don't mention in the question. So if it occurred in the night, then what is the punishment for committing zina? Inshallah, let's change the question. What is the tawbah, way of doing tawbah? Why do we want to, inshallah, worry about punishment? If you're going to make tawbah, Allah will forgive us. All right? So it's not a matter of the punishment, inshallah, it's rather what is the means of atonement. That is our attitude, how it should be, inshallah, from Allah who is Ghafur Rahim. So the answer would be that we have to make sincere tawbah. Sincere tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, cry in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ask Allah ta'ala to forgive our sin. That is if the zina occurred during the night. And if the zina occurred during the day, and a person had already started intention of fasting, and then they committed zina, then there would be 1 day qada and plus 60 days penalty. And 60 days continuous fast. And if the person had not fasted at all, hadn't even made intention to fast, then it's just 1 day qada. That's if the zina occurred during the day. And this person can ask any follow-up question in the box if he had, what does he mean by minor zina? Question is, eye for an eye is allowed in Islam. I'm reading the question as it is. Is that with murder as well? Right. First of all, in Islam, there is a whole system of justice, the justice law of Islam. Our fiqh is not limited to ibadat and acts of worship. There is the entire criminal law system and a judicial system in our deen. And there are certain conditions for that. We cannot take the law into our own hand. There's no vigilante justice in our deen where you take the law into your own hand. So this whole question, before we answer it, we have to realize that eye for an eye, the same thing with murder. This is mentioned in the Quran. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykumul qisasu fil qatla. Yes, all those who believe, there is qisas in qatla, in murder. If someone takes someone's life, then there are a number of options. The family members, they can demand the life of the one who took the life of their family member. And if they choose to forgive, they can take monetary compensation of 100 camels called diya, blood money. And if they also write that off, then they can forgive for the sake of Allah and seek reward in the hereafter. And it has to go through a process in a court where there have to be witnesses and the person has to be convicted. and then that will happen. Without an Islamic court, it is not permissible to go and take justice in your own hands and go and shoot somebody who killed your family member. That would be haram, that would not be permissible. As a teen, I struggle controlling my gaze, and this leads to bigger problems and issues. How can I change? One is that we work on remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, develop a relationship with Allah, make dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the more we become conscious and aware of the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we make muraqabah, alam ya'lam bi anna Allah yara, on this ayah, do you not know that Allah is watching you? And if this becomes penetrated in our heart and mind that Allah is watching us at every moment, it will become easier for us to protect ourselves from haram. And as a carrot for us and a reward for us to keep us motivated, is you can remind yourself that the more you control your eyes from gazing at haram today, Allah will give you that much more satisfaction with your lawful partner when the time comes. And the more you'll be enjoying so-called enjoyment, fleeting enjoyment with your eyes of haram today, the more then that peace will be taken away from you in your married life when the time comes. What is the most correct opinion regarding raf'ul yadayn? What is the most correct opinion regarding raising the hands in prayer? So this is a valid juristic difference. There are some different things we see in prayer and people doing which absolutely have no basis and do not have any backing from the fiqh or sharia. That is not the case with regards to raising the hands. There are two valid opinions. Imam Malik and Imam Abu Hanifa, the two earlier imams from the fiqh, from the four schools of thought, they raised their hands only in the beginning of the prayer. And Imam Shafi'i and Imam Ahmad, they also raised their hands during the prayer. So both are proven through the hadith. One are the hadiths of Abdullah bin Umar and others who raised their hands. One is the hadith of Abdullah bin Mas'ud who said, ألا أصلي بكم صلاة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فرفع يديه عند تكبيرة الأولى ثم لم يعد. أو كما قال. That Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, he raised his hands in the beginning of the prayer and then he did not raise his hands and he said, this is the salah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that is why Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Malik, they believe that raising the hands is mansukh, is been abrogated. Whereas Imam Shafi'i and Imam Ahmad, they can consider it still a valid amal. So if somebody is raising their hands, you should not attack them and say that's bid'ah. If someone is not raising their hands, then you should not say that they're also bid'ah. Both are okay. If you pass wind while making wudu, what do you do? If you pass wind while making wudu, then your wudu breaks. You will have to restart the wudu. If this happens so often that you're not able to make wudu and perform 4 rakat salah, and the entire time period passes while you're breaking wind all the time, breaking your wudu, passing wind, then you will be considered ma'dhur. And if you are considered ma'dhur, meaning you have a handicap, then you can continue with your wudu, and no matter how many times you pass wind, your wudu will not break. You will have to make a fresh wudu for every salah time. For every salah time. You made it for dhuhr, your wudu will last till asr no matter how many times you pass wind. You made it for asr, it will last till maghrib no matter how many times you pass wind. That's if a person has a medical condition. What is the difference between a prophet and a messenger? A prophet is a nabi, and a messenger is a rasul. A rasul comes from risala, message, and a prophet comes from naba. Nabi is the one who prophesies about the future. عَمَّا يَتَسَاءَلُونَ عَنِ النَّبَأِ الْعَظِيمِ. Naba is a news, a great news concerning the future. So a prophet prophesies about the news, he gives a naba, he's a nabi. And a messenger is a rasul who brings a risala, from a message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The difference is that there are 124,000 anbiya. Anbiya is a common one, the one who receives wahi from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a nabi. And a rasul, a messenger, are only 313. They are selected ones. They are higher status than the anbiya. Every rasul is a nabi, not every nabi is a rasul. From the 124,000 anbiya, only 313 are rasuls. The rasuls are the ones who received not only divine revelation, but a specific book, like Suhaf Ibrahim wa Musa, Tawrat, Zabur, Injil, Quran. Or they were sent to a specific tribe, or they were sent with a new sharia. So they are called rasuls. Like وَإِلَىٰ عَادٍ أَخَاهُمْ هُودًا. Hud alayhi salam was sent to Qawm 'Ad, he was a rasul. وَإِلَىٰ ثَمُودَ أَخَاهُمْ صَالِحًا. Salih alayhi salam was sent to Thamud, he was a rasul. So there are prophets sent to specific areas. Whereas rasuls or messengers are sent to specific areas with the new sharia, they have a loftier status, higher status. And nabis are reminders. Like in the Bani Israel, Musa alayhi salam, of course, was a rasul, he brought the Torah. But afterwards, many prophets came and they just were reminders. They didn't bring a new sharia, they didn't bring a new code of law, they didn't have new wahi, they weren't sent to new people. In fact, at the same time, like we heard just last night, وَضْرِبْ لَهُمْ مَثْلًا أَصْحَابَ الْقَرْيَةِ. Within one town, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent 3 prophets. So they didn't have 3 different shariahs and 3 different code of law. They all came to remind. One town, there were 3 prophets at the same time. So those are Anbiya. That is the difference between a prophet and a Nabi. What if someone pushes you outside of the masjid boundary? Will it break your sunnah i'tikaf? If somebody pushes you outside, it's very sad that that happened. But at the same time, your i'tikaf will become, your sunnah i'tikaf will break. If you're pushed outside the masjid boundary and your whole body comes outside. If part of your body is outside, your i'tikaf will not break. Because the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha, that he would bend his head outside and her home, her hujrah, her apartment was attached to the masjid, and she used to comb the hair of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam while he was in i'tikaf. So if portion of your body goes outside, it's okay. If you save yourself and come back inside. But if you completely fall outside, your i'tikaf will break. But you will not receive a sin. So one is the hukum, one is the ruling, and one is the sin. So for example, if you were hunting and you thought it was a duck and you shot a person, he's going to die. But you won't receive the sin of killing somebody. It's not premeditated murder, it's not homicide, it's manslaughter. So you didn't murder him on purpose, there was no motive behind the murder. It was an accident, but the person will still die. You won't receive the sin. So likewise, a person was pushed outside, he didn't want to go outside, so he won't get the sin of playing around with his i'tikaf, but his i'tikaf will still break. The dunyavi hukum, the worldly injunction and ruling will pass. And he will have to make it up. He will have to make up qada. Rulings on using the washroom in sunnah i'tikaf is a question. So yes, when we are in sunnah i'tikaf, we can use the bathroom. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam left the sunnah i'tikaf to use the bathroom, but we should come back as soon as we are done. And if we have to use the bathroom, that is the same. If we need to change our clothes or we need to do something else, then we can bracket that with our bathroom. Meaning we shouldn't leave the masjid only to change clothes and come back. Rather, we should wait until we have to use the bathroom. Then when we use the bathroom, at the same time we change our clothes. And then we come back. Does bleeding break your fast? Does blood break your fast? The question is incomplete. Does blood break your fast? If it's bleeding from the body, it doesn't break your fast. If it's swallowing blood, then it depends where you're bleeding from. If you're bleeding from inside your mouth, there's a lot of relaxation in that. But if it's from outside your lips and then you swallow it and it goes down, then that will break your fast. But if it's from your gums, it will not break your fast. You follow? If you're bleeding from your gums and you swallow, it won't break your fast. But if you fell down and hit yourself on your lip and you're bleeding outside and then you swallow that, you lick your lip and you swallow that blood, then it will break your fast. What is the difference between zakat and sadaqah? So, zakat is a very specific word. This is khas and aam. Zakat is a very specific word. It's a farad. It's not sunnah or nafal. There's no sunnah zakat. There's no nafal zakat. Zakat is only farad. It's 2.5% of a person's assets. It's called zakat. It's only farad. And sadaqah is a very, very general word. There could be sadaqah wajibah, there could be sadaqah nafila. There could be farad sadaqah, wajib sadaqah, nafal sadaqah. So what is a farad sadaqah? Zakat is a farad sadaqah. A person took a vow, I promise to Allah, if I pass my exam, I'm going to give so much sadaqah. Now that sadaqah is wajib on him to give. So it's sadaqah wajibah. A person took an oath, broke his oath, he has to give compensation. It's sadaqah. That's a fidya, that's wajib. So sadaqah can be wajib, sadaqah can be farad, and sadaqah can also be nafal, voluntary. So sadaqah is general, it could be any type. So when we just use the word sadaqah and we don't say anything with it, it means nafal. And when we use zakat, it means is the farad amount. Can women lead their own jamaat with ladies? For example, tarawih at home with other ladies following or nafal? Yeah, so this is a fiqhi ikhtilaf in this issue. In the Hanafi fiqh, it is permissible but makruh. The salat will be valid but is not desirable. And in the Shafi'i madhab, it is permissible. What is the procedure for washing the nose in ghusl of janaba while one is fasting? Taking the water deep may break the fast, correct? Yes, when a person is in state of janaba, meaning major impurity, has to take a ghusl while they're fasting, they have to be careful. They shouldn't take up the water into their nose too high, because if it goes down and into the throat, then their fast will break. The fast will break and they will have to make qada. So that's why you shouldn't take the water too deep into the nose. Just clean the nasal cavity. Don't inhale it too strongly. What is the tiredness level? Should I take a break? A few more questions? One question, how are the boundaries of the masjid made? This is an interesting question. How are the boundaries of the masjid made? So I'll add a little bit to that. What also should be asked is, what are some of the considerations when deciding the boundaries? How are the boundaries made in the first place is that the niyat of the waqif, the one when they build the masjid, whoever builds the masjid, and then they declare it waqf, and they say that this is now lillahi ta'ala, we have declared that this is a waqf property, means dedicated for Allah, can never be sold till the day of Qiyamah. It is decreed as a house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When they are doing that process, when they are making that intention, then they have to select the boundary of the masjid. And the boundary of the masjid can expand as needed later on, but can never be decreased. So you're always safer to start with the smaller and then increase if need be. What are some of the considerations? Some of the considerations is obviously right now what's really on your mind is that when a person is in sunnah i'tikaf, they have to remain within the boundaries. They cannot go outside the boundaries. That's very obvious for everyone, unless they have a dire necessity like relieving themselves. So that's one thing. But at the same time, so this is one force which would push you in the direction of expanding the masjid to make it more convenient for everyone. So as far as possible, if you make it the masjid boundary, the easier would be in i'tikaf. So that's one consideration. But an opposing consideration is that buying and selling in the masjid is haram outside of i'tikaf. You can if you are in i'tikaf. That's why you can buy the dua thing for $2. Because you're in i'tikaf, you can buy and sell if you're in i'tikaf. If you're not in i'tikaf, then buying and selling is haram. Eating and drinking is haram. Even sleeping, all of these things are not for the masjid unless you are in the niyat of i'tikaf. And also, talking about worldly things is very severely prohibited in the masjid, despite how common it is. It's so absolutely common, but it's so prohibited at the same time, unfortunately. So the fact that it's common doesn't decrease the level of the sin. The angels curse those who eventually, in the third time, when they continue talking in the masjid, first they warn them, and then they don't listen, then they eventually curse them. Those who continue talking about worldly things in the masjid. And the masjids are also those women who are in a state of ritual impurity, in a state of hayd, they should not come into the masjid area. They should not come in the masjid area. So now, for example, here, let's look at it practically, is that we have a women's section. Downstairs we have a multi-purpose hall. We have weekend academy classes where adult men and women come in that hall and study. And we have classes where adult women are teachers. They come, they teach, 7 days a week there are classes. 7 days a week, every week of the month. They don't have 7 days off when they have their monthly cycle that they don't come. They have to come every day to teach. So that's why we have to have such areas of the masjid which are outside, such areas under the structure which are not part of the Shari'i masjid. So that those women in those states can also come and participate and hear the lectures and benefit. So this side prayer hall where the women normally pray upstairs, the entire thing is outside of the Shari'i masjid. So women in any state can always come there. And downstairs up to the pillars, is the Shari'i masjid. On the other side of the pillars isn't. So when we put up the ceiling to floor dividers up and the women are on one side, half of that section is masjid, half isn't. So those women who are not praying can be on the other side, beyond the pillars. And this might be news to the men. You're not necessarily involved in this, but the women, they know this or should be knowing this. So that is how the niyat is made. So the lobby is outside the masjid. Another purpose is that in social gatherings, people come and they talk and this and that. So this is where they pray. When they go outside the masjid in the lobby, then there's a meeting and greeting area. So they can meet and talk to each other and they're not incurring the curses of the angels. That's why that lobby area is outside the Shari'i masjid. Is cigarette smoking permissible? There's two fatwas about cigarette smoking. One is that of haram, second is makruh tahrimi. So that's as good as it gets, makruh tahrimi. Highly undesirable. Either it's haram, the original fatwa is makruh tahrimi, that it's highly reprehensible, and then as the harms of smoking became more and more apparent medically, became more common knowledge, then many fuqaha have given the fatwa of it outright being haram because of its harmful effects. Everyone knows how harmful it is and all the different cancers it causes. I have not been getting job interviews except for companies that deal in in riba, loans, interest, is it permissible for me to take the job? Right? So riba and interest, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تَأْكُلُوا الرِّبَا أَضْعَافًا مُضَاعَفًا يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَذَرُوا مَا بَقِيَ مِنَ الرِّبَا إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. Or those who believe, abstain from interest-bearing transactions if you are believers. فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا, if you don't do so, فَأَذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. Then prepare for war against Allah and His Rasul. Prepare for war against Allah and His Rasul. This is the only sin in the entire Quran that has been termed as war against Allah and His Rasul. And there are 70 different levels of sin of committing of riba. The lowest level is fornicating with one's astaghfirullah in the Kaaba, by the Kaaba. So I don't even want to say how bad the hadith is, but there's a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So definitely we should try to avoid that. We have to avoid, we must avoid at all costs. And we can make this dua if you are here. Hopefully the person who asked the question is here. The dua after every salah taught to us by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahumma kfina bihalalika an haramik wa aghnina bifadlika amman siwak. Allahumma kfina, O Allah, provide us abundant halal an haramik, so we don't need to go towards haram. Wa aghnina bifadlika amman siwak. And O Allah, enrich us with your grace so that we do not need to turn to anyone else besides you. So this is highly effective. Many people have come back with very good results. When I gave them this dua, within a short period of time they found halal work, provided they recited the dua with sincerity. What are the parts of Tawbah and Nasuh? This is a good question. This was actually recited in the Fajr Salah in second rak'ah. Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu tubu ila Allahi tawbatan nasuha. O those who believe, turn to Allah in sincere repentance. Tawbatan nasuh means sincere repentance. So it depends what type of sin. There are two types of sins. If it involves huququllah, the rights of Allah, like not praying, not fasting, and that's one type of sin. And the second type of sin is huququl ibad, involves each other's rights. So if a person violates the rights of Allah, there's three parts to the tawbah. And if a person violates the rights of fellow human beings, there's four parts to the tawbah. What are the three parts? They're common. First one, if you can remember the three tenses. With verbs, if you remember, there are three tenses. There's past tense, there's a present tense, there's a future tense. So there are three, past, present, future. Regarding the past, a person has to have sincere regret about the past. In the present, he has to absolutely leave the sin in the present. And in the future, he has to make firm determination not to return. And if it involves something that you owe Allah, then you have to make it up with the qada, make up the fast, make up the salah, make up the zakat that you missed. And when it comes to the rights of human beings, if you stole someone's money, you cheated somebody, then you have to have sincere regret, stop doing it in the present, sincere determination not to return to it in the future, and you have to return the stolen item. You have to seek forgiveness if you backbited them. You can't hold on to the stolen property and make tawbah. What type of tawbah is that? You have to actually return the stolen property. Question, Fajr Salah only one day before Ramadan, it was at 4:45 a.m. Why now it's at 3:40 a.m.? Explain in light of Quran and Hadith. I read the question as is. Very simple answer is that the time for the Salah didn't change 1 hour when Ramadan started. The time for the Salah is the same. If you look on the timetable, maximum is 1 or 2 minute difference per day. It didn't change 1 hour. What happened is the Jamaat time changed. All right, because we have to understand that there's a difference in the time of Salah and the Jamaat time. And why is the Jamaat time? The philosophy behind setting the Jamaat time is that you want to set the Jamaat time when you can get the maximum crowd. Majority of people are not getting up for tahajjud before Ramadan. So that's why it's like half an hour before sunrise. The latest possible. So that you can perform the Salah with Sunnah long as it's supposed to be. And if there needs to be repeated because the wudu is not valid, or any mistake, then you have enough time to repeat the salah with sunnah the second time. So approximately half an hour before sunrise is recommended, the latest possible. And there's a hadith of Rasulullah ﷺ as well, Asfiru bil fajri fa innahu a'zamu lil ajri. Perform the salah when it's more light, not right when the time starts, it is greater in reward. But then when the month of Ramadan comes, what happens, and this is something you can very much relate to right now, is that when you have your suhoor, what do you want to do? You want to pray your fajr and sleep. And if you keep the Fajr Jama'ah half an hour before sunrise, everyone's going to pray the Fajr right after the Suhoor and go to sleep. No one's going to come to the Jama'ah. That's why the Fajr Jama'ah went up to 3:40. It's a very simple, practical answer for that one. It was nothing in light of Quran and Hadith. Well, the Quran and Hadith only plays a role in there with respect to the objective being trying to get more people for the Jamaat. In the same handwriting, the question comes, suhoor time in India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, it ends at 4:15 or 4:30 a.m. and the Fajr Salat is at 4:30 or 4:45 a.m. and sunrise is at 5 a.m. or 5:15 a.m. Why not the same timings here? Sunrise is at 5:25 a.m. here. Explained per Quran and Hadith. So the timings for the Salat depend on your latitude, how north or south you are from the equator, and based on that, and your longitude, more important is the latitude, then the time of the Salat will be different. So that's why it's not exactly the same. What is the hikmah behind not counting diamonds or other precious metals in counting zakah? This might be a follow-up question from the zakat seminar. Maybe he learned there's no zakat on diamonds. So basically what it is that there is zakat on gold and silver in any shape or form. When it's jewelry or if it's coins or if it's gold bars, there's zakat on gold and silver because it's considered mal, it's considered money in the Sharia. But diamonds are considered stones. They're just considered stones. They're like stones outside. So next time your wife asks you about a diamond, just say the Sharia says there's stones. You want me to buy a stone, $3,000 stone? All right, so it's not considered mal. So that's why there's no zakat on it. But keep in mind, if a person is buying and selling these stones, these precious stones, then it becomes a stock in trade. It becomes urudu tijara. And if you're buying or selling something with the intention of profit, then even if it's plastic or wood, there's zakat on it. If you're buying and selling toys, there's zakat on toys. If you're buying and selling tires, there's zakat on the value of tires, on rubber. So why not if you're buying and selling diamonds? So if you're buying and selling diamonds, you have a diamond store, then there's zakat on your entire stock, 2.5% of the value of your whole inventory. What is the zakat not on? The zakat is not only basically when you're weighing the jewelry, you can manage the weight of the stones. That's all it amounts to. And if a person is transferring all his liquid cash into diamonds to avoid zakat, then this is a loophole he's adopting to evade zakat. And just like this income tax evasion, this is much more serious than that. Al Capone was caught up with income tax evasion. Imagine if you do zakat evasion. Then Allah is more powerful than the IRS, right? So that's why we should not take that as a joke and say, okay, now I'm going to transfer all my assets into diamonds because there's no zakat on diamonds. These are more questions, but I think, he's asking, what is the best dhikr you recommend? What is the best dhikr? If you ask the investment consultant, then he will say that you should diversify your portfolio. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Same thing with respect to dhikr. Each dhikr has its own beautiful effect. Salawat on Rasulullah are cooling dhikr, calming, peaceful dhikr. They have their own effect of bringing rahmah. And La ilaha illallah is a jalali dhikr. It fills the heart with heat and brings the fire of tawheed alive in one's heart. Istighfar is there for seeking forgiveness from your sins. It washes away the sins. So the best dhikr you recommend is that to have a little bit of each of the above. There should be some tasbih, subhanallah, some tahmeed, alhamdulillah, some takbir, Allahu Akbar, hawqala, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And a beautiful combination is what is commonly known as the third kalima. Subhanallah walhamdulillah. Subhanallah is subhanallah, walhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar, wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah al-aliyyil azim. So this is a very beautiful tasbih, tahmeed, takbir, everything is involved in here. That should be recited 100 times morning and evening. Istighfar, astaghfirullah rabbi min kulli dhanbi wa tubu ilayh, should be 100 times morning and evening. Salawat ala Rasulullah, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad wa barik wa sallim, 100 times morning and evening. Combination of these three is beautiful. And on top of it, the cream on the cake is recitation of Quran. As the Prophet ﷺ said, فَضْلُ كَلَامِ اللَّهِ عَلَى سَائِرِ الْكَلَامِ كَفَضْلِ اللَّهِ عَلَى سَائِرِ خَلْقِهِ. That the superiority of the word of Allah over all other words is like the superiority of Allah Himself over His creation. There's a question, what should you do if you have a constant fear of istidraj? Istidraj is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving respite. سَنَسْتَدْرِجُهُم مِّنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ وَأُمْلِي لَهُمْ إِنَّ كَيْدِي مَتِينٌ. This is an ayah in the Quran. This person is referring to istidraj. He has knowledge of istidraj. Many of us will say, what in the world is istidraj to begin with? So istidraj is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He lets things happen fine, and you remain healthy and wealthy and prosperity and happiness apparently, but this is all Allah is giving you a chance and respite, and is letting you accumulate more and more sins. Like it is mentioned about Fir'aun, he never even had a headache. It wasn't because Allah was happy with him, because Allah wanted him to continue to transgress and amass more and more sins and make the pan of deeds of his sins heavier on the Day of Judgment. So this person is saying he has a constant fear of istidraj. So one sign, one consolation for him is that Fir'aun was not worried about istidraj. If it is istidraj, you wouldn't have fear of istidraj. You'd be enjoying it, and you would be exulting in that dunya, and you would have no concern of Allah. That's a sign. This is a very classical philosophical question, that good conditions, they come upon the believers, like Dawood and Sulaiman alayhi salam had kingdoms, as well as Nimrud and Shaddad had a kingdom. So how do you know if it's a blessing of Allah, like Sulaiman said, هَذَا مِن فَضْلِ رَبِّي? Or how do you know it's istidraj, like Fir'aun had istidraj? And likewise, bad conditions and tests, and they came upon the Anbiya. Ayub alayhi salam had sickness, and Yusuf alayhi salam was thrown away from his family. Yaqub alayhi salam lost his son. So bad things happen to prophets, and bad things also happen to the enemies of Allah. How do you know if it's a test and trial to elevate your status, or is it in a form of azab of Allah, is it a punishment of Allah, Allah is angry? How do you know? Because bad things happen to both good and bad people, and good things happen to both good and bad people. How do you determine that? So the simple answer is your reaction will determine that. If you're enjoying health, wealth, prosperity and happiness, and that makes you more thankful to Allah, shukr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are making more prayers and you're thanking Allah for the bonus, and then that bonus is a blessing from Allah. That promotion and job is a blessing from Allah. The health is a ni'mah from Allah, because you're thanking Allah. But if it makes you forget Allah and forget the deen of Allah, and you become so engrossed in that you become farther away from the deen, then that's not blessing, that's istidraj. That's istidraj, wake up. On the other hand, if you are in suffering, and that makes you have more khushu' in your salah, you're crying more, you're missing, your heart is softer, then this is to elevate your status. This is like Ayub alayhi salam underwent suffering. And if you are undergoing suffering and then you lose hope and you have yas, la yayasu min ruhi illa al-qawm al-kafirun, you lose hope and you become despondent and you say, why me, astaghfirullah, and you say kalimat of kufr, why Allah had to do this, where is Allah, why is He not here to help me today? And then people say, I don't believe anymore. Then that is a form of adhab. Does brushing break your fast? Went from a philosophical question to a practical thing. Does brushing teeth break your fast? So brushing teeth, if you have toothpaste and you swallow the toothpaste, which is not intended, no one swallows the toothpaste hopefully, then it will break your fast. If you don't swallow it and you spit it out, then it is undesirable, but otherwise it will not break your fast. I recently chose to deliberately not fast with no just reason. I have been repenting since. I intended to make up the fast after Ramadan, inshallah. Is there anything additional I'm supposed to do for this huge sin? I read somewhere that you must feed 60 poor people or fast 60 days. So again, in the month of Ramadan, the farad fast, without any valid reason, if you just don't keep it, you never intended it, it's a major sin naturally. You have to make tawbah, and it's one day you make up. Only one day. If you started the farad fast with the intention and then you intentionally broke it, then there is a one day to make up qada plus 60 days continuous fasting. Plus 60 days continuous fasting. 2 months. And tawbah. Inshallah, I think that's sufficient for today. We will continue the remaining tomorrow. Inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of us, and please keep the questions coming so that we can answer them. And obviously, if you have put a question in the box, then be here in the morning session to ensure that you are present when your question is answered. That would be a great tragedy if the question is answered and the questioner missed it, and then he doesn't want to go around asking if his question was answered because he doesn't want to be identified. That would be a pretty sad predicament to be in, inshallah. And we'll only be taking it through this. We will not be taking directly from the audience. It's because it becomes easier to sift through it. And you can tell by the sheer number of questions we answered that we are trying to get all of your questions. We're not going to ignore it unless there is some very strong reason not to take it. Otherwise, we're pretty much taking all the questions up here. Try to be clear, try to be specific in your questions so it becomes easier to answer accurately. Jazakallah khair. Inshallah, now we will just recite Surah Yasin and make dua. and then just rest all the way till 12 o'clock, inshallah. This is the major portion of the time to rest. Jazak.